Well, well, well. I should have known. You're going to get yourself killed one of these days sneaking up on people like that, Sullivan. Especially when people have a good reason to be jumpy. Sit down, would you? I already know why you're here. You never come to visit me unless you've got bad news, which, by the way, really hurts my feelings. It's good to see you, Sullivan. Although I do wish I could say it was for a better reason. You're here about the rituals, the killings for the awakening. Councilman Willard Vilmar already beat you to it, but not by much. We met up this morning by the docks. Here, this is the file that he gave me. If you know anything more, do enlighten me. Sullivan, how bad is it? I could tell Vilmar was afraid, but all the stuffed coat politicians jump at the sight of their own shadow. Looking at what he gave me, though, it's hard to deny. But I need to hear it from you. You were there when Malachi reigned, and you were there when he fell. So I need you to tell me, how bad is it? And how much time do I have? The third tier. So, they're almost as far as Malachi was. Sullivan, if they keep going at this rate, it's 2 moons, 3 tops. How could something like this go undetected for so long? Especially in a capital city? The council's own backyard. There's a lot about this that doesn't add up, and you know it. Why didn't you tell me the moment you found out, or even suspected? No, I know. I'm sorry, it's just so much at once, you know. So how long do I have before I'm arrested? Come on, Sullivan, I'm not naive. They're already pointing the finger at me. Vilmar told me he was doing his best to stall, but I don't exactly have much faith in his ability to sway the rest of the council. But they can't act without approval from the keepers. You're up their chain of command. I know that you know. How long? Can you get me a week? No, I'm not fleeing. Running would only be seen as an admittance to guilt. Besides, this isn't something I can leave behind. I can't just... Oh, hey you. I thought I told you to stay upstairs. Well, come in, sit with us. This is Sullivan. He's a friend of mine. He's kind of like a vampire policeman. Our police are called keepers. Keeping everyone in check, basically. When I fled Malachi, Sullivan took me in. We can trust him. Sullivan, this is my guest, who will be staying with me either until this is all over or until I'm arrested, in which case I'll need you to make sure they get to Mila. And don't tell anyone that they even exist. Not yet. A few weeks ago, this human turned up on my front doorstep and claimed to have met Malachi. Impossible, yes, that's exactly what I said. Only it wasn't. The human had a dream in which they met Malachi, who told them to seek me out and deliver a message. The next day, they were at my door with a note written in old words, a language Malachi taught me when I was very young. They wrote the note in their sleep, and as well they mapped my address in their cell. All of this was confirmed by Mila. She saw the dream. It was unmistakably Malachi. And ever since that day I knew something was happening. I just didn't know what. I had some theories, but I had nothing to corroborate them. And I looked, Sullivan. I looked for anything unusual, out of the ordinary, anything that remotely reminded me of that monster. And I didn't find anything. I know I'm not incompetent, but that, combined with the fact that the keepers have only caught on a short while ago, someone is going to great lengths to keep this hidden. Vilmar told me that some of the suspects admitted to being aided by demons. Regardless of whether the keepers have found anything physical to corroborate that, I don't see an alternative. I don't see how something this big could go so undetected without demonic intervention. And that kind of power is rare. Do the keepers have any idea who it could be? That's disappointing. But while the keepers focus on finding the puppet master, I'm going to focus on cutting as many strings as possible. Try to prevent or interrupt the rituals in any way that I can, for as long as I can. But Malachi didn't even command demons, and his rituals were already difficult to stop. We know for certain there has to be more than one demonic entity at play here. Without the counter magic, there may not be a way to stop what has already been put into motion. Yes, they were destroyed, but I do have something that I think can help. It's not something I want to use. It's not something I really even wanted to keep around. But I was afraid that something like this might happen. Like you always taught me, Sullivan, if you're only one step ahead, then you're already 2 steps behind. It's my ace in the hole, and I think it's time to play it. Sullivan, Malachi is alive. Barely alive, but alive. Don't get riled up. Hear me out. He's completely helpless, barely more than a corpse. I left him chained and entombed deep in the earth. I left him destitute, and I left him to starve, to wither away into a thin, leathery sack of bones. I knew abandoning him to the crypt wouldn't kill him. I knew starving him wouldn't kill him. I left him to a fate worse than death because I thought that one day we might need to use him. I saw the extent of the damage and the utter depravity that Malachi and his followers left in their wake. Things that could only be permitted and condoned by demonic parasites. Things that were desperate to exist. I realized that this is more than Malachi. Whatever this ancient power was that allured him and gripped him was an entity all to itself, desperate to be born, and if Malachi could not do it, then it would find another. Eventually, somehow, it would find another host to birth its potential and its master. And if it did, then we would have no hopes of intervention, because the only things that could work to abort this abomination altogether had been destroyed. Those counters were old, archaic, and said to be written by angels. As far as we're concerned, Angels are extinct, but demons are rampant. Nephilim are strong, but they only harbor a fraction of their ancestors' powers. And without some sort of catalyst, without these spells, these counters, they can do nothing. But all that knowledge sleeps inside Malachi. It's locked away in his mind. I thought there might come a day when we would need that, and you should be glad that I did. No, Malachi is not a threat to us. He's been completely depraved and has been rotting for the past 200 years. Even if he were to recover in any amount, he will never be as strong as he once was. Not only because the entombment will leave a lasting toll, but because I leashed him to me. And, as you know, I'm plague-born, so it's a very short leash. I know it's a lot to take in, and I'm sorry that I kept it from you, and that I've been lying all these years. But I thought it was better this way. No, Mila does not know. I'm going to tell her. I just have to figure out how. I entombed him alone, but to get him out, I would need Mila's help. So if she refuses, then he'll stay where he is. But we don't have much time, and I don't know what else to do. I knew you would agree. It wasn't a desirable decision, but it was a tactical one. Let's just hope that Mila feels the same way. I'll call you once I've spoken to her and let you know what we decide to do.